Doctor, I have a doctor here at the hospital. I went to see him. You've been with him? The hospital. Doctor Dham. Wow, very bad.
This time I think your kirtan sound coming down, but not coming up time way.
Yeah. I'm just chairman of the board. It's all right. The singing is better when I'm pushing. And I sit up there, my stomach is kind of feeling. Yeah. No, that's everybody's going. We are authorized. Well, we can start kirtan. So, he said he's coming. Can you play harmonium? No. Okay.
Prabhu plays with Dham.
He plays very good. He does both. Awesome. And sings also. Yeah.
Vishnurata Prabhu, very good player. Mridanga or harmonium. Vishnurata Prabhu. Why?
Okay. He will play Madanga. No, you will play Madanga and he can play harmonium. Alright? Until
Somebody else is coming. Sir? I seem to be the only, I don't know. We can sit.
Need. Please.
Should I sit here?
Yeah.
But if somebody else is coming, it's
Doesn't matter.
But anyways, you have to move it again if somebody else is coming.
Yeah. Probably better than me. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Rama Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Caitanya-charitamrita Shri Advaita Sita. Caitanya-charitamrita Shri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad Gita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad Gita. Jai Rupa Sanatan Bata Raghunath. Jai Rupa Sanatan Bata Raghunath. Vijiva Gopal Bata Dasa Raghunath. Jiva Gopala Bata Dasa Raghunath. Ichaya Goshai Kari Charana Vandan. Yaha Hoite Vignanath Abhishta Puran. Ichaya Goshai Jar Muitharodas. Asabara Padarinu Maura Panchagras. Tadela Charana Sevi Bhakta Stanebas. Janame Janame Hoy Abhilas. Ichaya Goshai Jabe Braja Khalyabas. Iti Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Khorila Prakash. Bolo Anande Bola Hari Braja Vrindavan. Anande Bola Hari Braja Vrindavan. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Madhyaman. Sri Guru Vaishnava Pade Madhyaman. Sri Guru Vaishnava Pada Padma Pariyas. Sri Guru Vaishnava Pada Padma Pariyas. Harinam Sankirtan Kohe Narottama Das. Harinam Sankirtan Kohe Narottama Das. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Sacinandana, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Sacinandana, Jaya Gaura Hari. Vishnu Priya Pranadana, Nadia Bihari. Nadia Bihari. Vishnu Priya Pranadana, Nadia Bihari. Nitai Gaurango, Jaya Nitai Gaurango. 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Jai, Hari Hari Bol. So, today we are very fortunate. Our guest speaker today, well, of course we have a few other. His Grace Harisari is here. He just came for the prasadam. So he's a prasadam devotee, like all of us.
The real prasadam is what flows from the
So today our guest speaker today is His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu. So, without taking up too much more time, Madhavananda Prabhu resides in Jagannath Puri. And like many of us, we're stuck here in Mayapur Dham, which is a good place to get stuck. If you're going to get stuck in Mayapur. We are stuck in the affectionate embrace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, what's not to like? Anyway, I won't take up any more time. We will hand it over to Madhavananda Prabhu.
No more.
fortune to senior to me. Here's another one of my Guru Janas, Harisari Prabhu, and also Sahadev Prabhu and Sarvabhauma Prabhu in You might become very angry with me that I'm daring to say something in front of so many senior special devotees. Please forgive me. We're just trying to do some service. Just like sometimes you may have an Orissa, there's many Odissi dance gurus. And you may be a very famous Odissi dance guru. And you can dance in so many ways. And you may have a little child who's 4 months old. And that child is starting to walk. But not only is the child trying to walk, he's trying to dance because he sees his father doing things. So what does his dance mean? It has no meaning, right? But it may have one meaning if it makes the father smile. If I can make Hari Sari smile, then I'll feel some happiness. So please forgive us.
We are eager to hear you.
Hare Krishna. I'm not really going to speak anything today, actually. I have a few things I've collected, some thoughts, and I'll maybe make some comments upon them on another topic. But before I begin that, I also want to say a little something. That yesterday, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, one of Srila Prabhupada's very, very special generals, Yasomati Nandan Prabhu, left this world, and there's a big vacant heart in so many devotees, especially in Gujarat and all over the world. Everyone would call him Yaso. Everyone loved him very much. He was, in my humble opinion, very close to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada had great affection for him. I heard that Prabhupada twice said that you know the philosophy, you've understood, to him. And I had the good fortune to hear him speak a few times. And whenever he would speak, it was always he was speaking about Srila Prabhupada. He met Prabhupada in America, and Prabhupada told him to come to India and preach in Gujarat. And he established a center there in Baroda and was the president there for so many years and did so many services for Srila Prabhupada. So it's a very sad thing when senior devotees like that leave, and we want to try to remember them and ask for their blessings. So before I begin with our subject today, I wanted to offer some pranams to the devotees and also to Yasomati Nandan Prabhu. And I'd like to begin with a few prayers, so you be patient with me, please. Gora Graganya Gana Gocha Goloruharam Gauranga Gudatama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bhatta Jachi Adi Prem Lahanga Baje Se Hoy Amara Prana Re Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bolo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Mabhiya Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Caitanya-charitra Namo Namaste Caitanya-charitra Namo Namaste Caitanya-charitra Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Srikuryat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sampaya Pitva Rishayustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathapta Brajabala Bapahimam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before I start, I always like to think, what am I doing? What is our purpose in being here today? And there's a tradition of that in Vedic culture. It's called sankalpa. Before you begin something, you contemplate what it is you're doing, why you're there. And I want to begin by saying this is not a class. It's like you have in the university. It's not a sermon like you have in the church. That's not our purpose. It's not a commercial like you have on television. What we want to have is katha. In the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, Krishna explains to Uddhava what is katha. And he uses a very nice word, paraspara. Paraspara anu means to follow. Anukatanam. This kata should follow, it should go along the lines of this paraspara. Paraspara is also a word in the Gita. Paraspara in Bengali and Sanskrit both means to have an exchange, to go back and forth. Something to help the devotees to think about something. And I'd like it to hope at the end the devotees can have some reflections. We will have 10 or 15 minutes if I go quick enough over our topics. And we can share some different thoughts on what we're speaking, because Harikatha is not passive. It's not just something that you sit and listen and get some entertainment perhaps, or get some information. But it's meant to be paraspara. There should be some back and forth. And in that sense, katha is meant to create community. Krishna Kirtan is also there. And we hear there's a Leela Kirtan in Jagannath Puri that I'm trying to remember. Chotigay. Anyway, in all four directions during the Rathayatra time, all the different mahants, they came together. Sata Sampradaya Gaya Geet, it describes. And there's 100 different sampradayas, and everybody's doing kirtan. Because in kirtan, you can do kirtan with everyone. But when you start having Krishna Katha, that's something a little different. Even within our ISKCON society, there's different little groups. And they have different moods about Krishna Katha. Because that Krishna Katha really brings everyone on the same page. And I think of Srila Prabhupada, and how Srila Prabhupada would do his kirtan. He would do some kirtan, chant some prayers, and then he would speak something. And then again he would do kirtan. And that's our system. So this is our purpose today. I'd like to read to you something from a verse and purport of Srila Prabhupada from the 3rd canto of Shrimad Bhagavatam. This is chapter 29, the explanation of devotional service by Lord Kapila Deva. It's text number 9. Vishayanabhisandhaya yasa aishvaryam evava archadav archayed yomam pritak bhava sarajasaha. The worship of deities in the temple by a separatist. The phrase pritak bhava means a separatist. With a motive for vishaya. Vishaya is the first word in the verse. Someone who has a motive for sense gratification. Vishaya, material enjoyment. Yasa means fame, for fame. And some opulence, Aishvarya. Lord Kapila tells his mother, Sarajasa, this is bhakti in the mode of passion. So let's read Srila Prabhupada's purport, or a little something from Prabhupada's purport. The word separatist must be understood carefully. The Sanskrit words in this connection are binadrik and pritak bhava. And he uses the phrase binadrik because that comes from the previous verse, which describes bhakti in the mode of ignorance. So both bhakti in the mode of ignorance and bhakti in the mode of passion have the same quality. They're either pritag bhava or binadrik. They're separate. They have a separate motivation from the Lord. In other words, their motivation is not to please the Lord. A separatist is one who sees his interest as separate from that of the Supreme Lord. Mixed devotees, or devotees in the modes of passion and ignorance, think that the interest of the Supreme Lord is supplying the orders of the devotee. Of course, right? Every child thinks that this is why God created my mother and father to feed me and to serve me and wash my clothes and do everything like that, right? And similarly, materialistic people, they also think this is the purpose of God. Give us our Lord our daily bread, and today I'd like some whole wheat bread. Please give me this. All right. So the Vaishnavas don't appreciate that, and there's a very subtle science to what is bhakti, what is Sudha bhakti. So saguna bhakti means bhakti under the modes of material nature. And it may be bhakti in the mode of ignorance, bhakti in the mode of passion, or bhakti in the mode of goodness. And even bhakti in the mode of goodness is not fully satisfying, and it has some motivation. Today we're just going to speak a little something about bhakti in the mode of passion. Prabhupada says, a devotee should not wish anything but to execute the desire of the Supreme. This is oneness. When a devotee has an interest or will different from the interests of the Supreme Lord, his mentality is that of a separatist. When the so-called devotee desires material enjoyment without reference to the interests of the Supreme Lord, or he wants to become famous or opulent by utilizing the mercy or grace of the Supreme Lord, he is in the mode of passion. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we're not going to go so deep into this topic. Actually, we spoke in this verse some months ago, and we spoke in this particular verse for like a week. There's so many, many things that can be said about it. And Vishwanath, he quotes from the Brihanaradiya Purana, speaking about 3 different motivations in the mode of passion. Roughly speaking, these are Vishai, someone who's doing bhakti, so they'll get some sense gratification. And that's also, they're doing bhakti. Hridayananda Maharaj once told me a story that they had a temple somewhere in South America, and there was an expert brahmachari who knew Shastra like anything, was very renounced, nice devotee, and he was there for many years, and he didn't make any devotees. And so finally they decided to switch him with a grihasta couple. And the Mataji happened to be a very good-looking young lady. And then immediately they started making devotees. And so this is a nature of people. They sometimes come to Krishna consciousness to find a good husband, find a good wife. Well, you know, if you go to Mayapur, there are so many places you can get good pizza. And devotees sometimes come for this purpose. Don't fault them. That's also good. And Srila Prabhupada encouraged that. He used to keep, we've read in Satsvarup Maharaj's book about Srila Prabhupada, that there in 26 2nd Avenue, they had a special jar by the door full of gulab jamans. And I've heard that many a devotee, after some time, would start thinking, this is just too difficult. I can't practice this anymore. I got to go. And so they would get up to leave, and they thought, anyway, before I go, I'll take one more glebsman. And they would take that glebsman. They said, well, actually, this glebsman is really nice. Maybe I'll just stay a little bit longer for the feast, and after the feast, maybe then I'll go. So Srila Prabhupada understood this kind of mentality. We don't condemn it, but at the same time, we want to recognize it, and we want to rise above it. So one motivation in the mode of passion is Vishai. The second motivation is Yasa. Someone wants to be famous. Senior devotees here in the room could tell you so many stories. I think it would take days and days about devotees who wanted to become famous. And maybe they were for some time in some limited way. That was their motivation. And if they didn't become famous, if they didn't get that satisfaction of having people appreciate them, they don't have any motivation in bhakti. So sometimes the guru, sadhu, sees that and he encourages them. You are an incarnation. You are so intelligent. You're this and that. And they would flatter them in so many ways. The third motivation is Aishvarya, where someone wants to have some opulence. And also we've seen that in our movement. The devotees, sometimes they become very, very opulent. Anartha Yukta Vasta and Bhogya Darshan, there's described that such devotees, they have a particular darshan of the Lord because they're Anartha Yukta Vasta. Anartha Yukta Vasta means they have anarthas in the heart. And so their darshan of the Lord, their darshan of the movement, their darshan of the mission is mixed. They're Benedric, they're a separatist. And it means their vision is, technically my Guru Maharaj called this Bhogya Darshan. They don't have Sevaka Darshan. They don't see that the purpose of being here is to serve. They see the purpose of being here is to have a good time. You should, Prabhu, as one devotee many years ago once told me, he said, Madhavananda, you have to think about your career in ISKCON. I had a very bad day. I didn't want to think about my career in ISKCON. It's not why I came here. But some people have some vision like that. So this is bhakti in the mode of passion. Srila Prabhupada describes in his purport to Bhagavad Gita 17:18. Sometimes penance and austerity are executed to attract people and receive honor, respect, and worship from others. Persons in the mode of passion arrange to be worshipped by subordinates, and they let them wash their feet and offer riches. Such arrangements, artificially made by the performance of penances, are considered to be in the mode of passion. The results are temporary. They can be continued for some time, but they're not permanent. Very interesting point. This is the nature of Rajagun. It's not a permanent kind of thing. And sometimes we see devotees, even they do very seemingly big service. And it's appreciated. Srila Prabhupada used so many devotees for this movement, and those personalities are so very, very glorious and wonderful. But their service didn't always continue, because perhaps it's mixed with some particular mode. In the Nectar Devotion in chapter 3, Srila Prabhupada says a similar thing, very powerful thing he says. Please listen. He says, anyone who has any desire or aspiration for satisfying his senses by becoming more and more important, either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense, cannot actually relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. And again, if we can't taste that, we're licking the outside of the honey jar. Our motivation is something else. We're getting some pratishta, some fame, some puja, some worship. We're getting some money or something. And that may be our motivation. And even sometimes a sadhu gives those motivations, encourages people to engage them in bhakti. But we should know, if we want to serve Srila Prabhupada, if we want to get that prema dana that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, that ecstatic love of God, we have to understand what is bhakti in the mode of ignorance, what is bhakti in the mode of passion, what is bhakti in the mode of goodness. And we need to learn how to rise above that. And we want to do that for the pleasure of our Guru Janas, for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. So today, in this regard, I wanted to speak something to you from one of the pastimes of Krishna in Braj. And this is called Keshi Damana Leela. Thakur Bhaktivinoda, in his Caitanya-charitamrita and in his Krishna Samhita, has described two types of pastimes of the Lord. These are Nitya and Naimitic. Nitya means eternal. And those are pastimes which go on in the spiritual world. The Naimitic Leela, he says there are 26 different Naimitic Leelas that Krishna performs in this world. And they begin with Putana Vada, or the killing of Putana. And Bhaktivinoda says that although these are historical fact, these are reality, Krishna really killed all these demons, they're also in one sense allegorical. They have some purport. They represent different obstacles that all of us will face on our journey home to Vrindavan. And so we need to understand what these obstacles are. And Keshi represents the obstacle of a devotee who's in the mode of passion. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains in Krishna Samhita, Gotakatma hatastena Keshi Raja Madasura Maturam Gantukamena Krishnena Kamsavirina. When Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, decided to go to Mathura, the horse demon Keshi, who personifies the vanity of political ambition, was killed. Now, this is another topic I won't go into right now, but it's a very interesting thing, the connection of Keshi and Mathura Leela. And Bhaktivinoda intimates it a little bit here. It's said that prati shloke prati akshara nanarthakoi. Every verse, not just every verse, but every akshara, every syllable of the Bhagavatam, of the writings of our acharyas have unlimited meaning. And if we go deep into those things, we can understand something of it. Again, in Krishna Samhita, Bhaktivinoda explains further. Bhakti tejo shrimidyatu sokarsha gyanavan nara kadachit dushta buddhyatu keshi grinam avanite. In his Bhaktivinoda in Krishna Samhita is given a kind of expanded Bengali Anuvad. Anuvad means a translation, but it means an explanation, purport also. So, if you're a Sanskrit scholar, you'll see that what we're about to read you is not literally the Sanskrit verse, but it's Bhaktivinoda's explanation. And he says, Keshi, who's a demon in the form of a horse, personifies the practitioner's conception of being more expert than others in devotional service. This is Keshi. He thinks, yes, they asked me to come here and speak. And even Hari Sari Prabhu, glorified me in Agnideva Prabhu, I must be so special. This is Pritag Bhava. This is the attitude of a separatist. Because he doesn't see, as Krishna tells Arjuna, Nimitta matram bhavasadi sachin, you just be my instrument. He doesn't see it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to Guru and Krishna. Pritag Bhava, someone who is a separatist in the mode of passion or ignorance, they're seeing that, oh, I'm better than other people. Bhaktivinoda goes on. When he comes to Braj, such a devotee, a separatist devotee, he creates a disturbance. As a Vaishnava gradually begins proclaiming his own superiority, a mentality of disrespect for the Lord arises, and the devotee falls from his position. Therefore, it is most important to prevent this evil mentality from entering the heart Even if one is expert in devotional service, a Vaishnav will never give up the quality of humility. If one does so, then there's a need for killing Keshi. This is the 18th obstacle. Now, in his Caitanya-charitamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given another explanation. I went into the Bengali, I read a little Bengali, and we transliterated this, and I'm meditating on Bhaktivinoda's very deep meaning. It's simple Bengali. I think many of you will understand what he says. He says, Keshi Vada means, listen carefully, Ami Bodo Bhakta O Acharya, E Abhiman, Aishvarya Buddhi O Partiva Hankara Varjana. He says that this ahankara varjana, this false ego has to be given up of Keshi. Varjana means to give up. And what is that false ego? What is the first thing he says? Ami Bodho Bhakta. I am a great devotee. Oh Acharya. I'm teaching by my example. You may think I'm not an Acharya, but how many of us think that I'm teaching by my achar, or by my behavior, which is an Acharya? Ami Bodho Bhakta. Oh Acharya. E Abhiman. This mentality, this attitude. Aishvarya Buddhi. Oh, Partiva Hankara Varjana. This mentality that I'm very opulent and very powerful. I know so many verses. I know this and that. This false ego, Partiva Hankara. Hankara means a false ego. Partiva literally means the Lord of the earth, or the king. That I am the most important devotee. That's me. This is the demon Keshi. And the very word Keshi is interesting in this regard. Keshi means hair. And it's our hair where we keep our vanity. Prabhupada writes one purport in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam. He says that this is the business of women. Nobody please be angry with me, but Prabhupada says this, combing the hair is the business of women. Prabhupada says like this. And if they're able to give that up, like Devahuti gave that up, that's the symptom she's actually a sadhvi. It's not such an easy thing, because that hair combing, Prabhupada says, is one of the main businesses of women. There's a common saying in America, I'm a queen crowned in my curls. So that hair represents our vanity. And therefore this particular demon, he's called Keshi. Keshi is also described in a number of different Puranas. We'll explore a little bit of that today. I'd like to go to the 1st canto of the Garga Samhita in chapter 6, which is called Kamsa Bala Varnana, or a description of Kamsa's strength. And it describes there how on one occasion Kamsa went to Mahishmati city, and there he met these very powerful persons. Chanura, Mushtika, Kuta, Salatoshala, all these very powerful wrestlers. And Kamsa challenged them to a fight. And said, if you win, I'll be your servant. If I win, then you be my servant. And so Kamsa defeated all of them. And then Kamsa went to the Rishyamukh forest. And there was a great demon living in that Rishyamukh forest. Speaking too fast, I know. Sorry. His name was Keshi. And he had the form of a horse. And Kamsa punched that horse again and again and subdued it. And then he climbed on it and he rode that horse around. And that horse became his mount that he would ride. And Keshi helped Kamsa to defeat the different demigods. So Keshi Vardhana Leela is described in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam in chapter 37. And there it's described in the first verse. Keshi tu Kamsa prahita, Keshi tu Kamsa prahita kararai mahim. I'm sorry. Keshi tu Kamsa prahita kararahim mahahayo nirjayan mano java satavadu badra vimana sankulam kurvana bhokeheshita bishita kila. Sukadeva Goswami began describing to Maharaj Pariksit, and he said there's this demon named Keshi who was sent by Kamsa, and he appeared in Braj as a great horse. And he was running around. He says, Mana Java. Mana means the mind, and Java means the speed. Keshi was going as fast as the mind. This is the nature of Keshi. And Keshi, his hair scattered all the clouds and the demigods' airplanes, and everyone became frightened of him because he made this loud sound. Heshita. He's Keshi, and he made this Heshi. Heshita means a loud neighing sound. He had a lot to say when he entered into Vrindavan. So think about it from another perspective based on Bhaktivinoda's description that Keshi represents a devotee who's thinking Ami Bodho Bhakta, O Acharya, E Abhiman. He has this attitude, I'm a great devotee, I'm the Acharya. And now he's entering into Vrindavan. And so this is a devotee in the mode of passion. How does he enter into Vrindavan? He enters by making a big noise. Hey, here I am. I'm a great devotee. And he disturbs the demigods with his hairs. The second verse describes that when Krishna saw that Hey Sita, by that loud sound that he was making, that big noise, which is just like the roar of a lion, Krishna came before him. In the Varaha Purana it said, Ganga Satu Ganam Punya Yatra Keshi Nipatita. That place where Krishna killed Keshi, it's 100 times more pure than the Ganga. So the Vishnu Purana, I won't read all the Sanskrit, it's a long several verses, describes in a very interesting way that when the residents of Vrindavan, they saw this terrible demon, what did they say? Chahi, 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 Govinda. Hey Govinda, help us, save us, save us. There's this fellow who's acting like a devotee, entering into Vrindavan, he's just making this big noise. Save us, save us. He's going to disturb the whole Sangha. He's going to disturb the whole mission. If you come in with this kind of attitude, like I'm such a very, very big person. And then Krishna, he told them, Shrutatesham tato vacha. He said, hey, he spoke, Advana Gambiram idam ukakvan. He spoke as deep as a cloud. And he told them, Alam Trasena Gopala, why are you afraid? He said, what is this horse? He said, what use is he? What kind of courage does he have? His only courage is his big mouth. That's all. He doesn't really know anything. He's just come here. He has no real strength. He just makes a big show and runs around like this. Jiva Goswami, in his Laghu Vaishnava Toshani, describes that Keshi became so furious when he saw Krishna, because Krishna now was challenging him. And people who are like Keshi, they don't like that. They don't want to be challenged. They become very angry. I'm the leader of religion. Ami Bodho Bhakta O Acharya E Abhiman. I have this attitude that I'm a great devotee. And if someone comes and dares to challenge me, it gets very ugly. Becomes very, very angry. So Keshi went running at the Lord, and it's described in the Bhagavatam, Makena Kam, that his mouth was like the sky. Again, this is the strength of Keshi. He's got a big mouth. And he goes running to attack Krishna. Krishna is the essence of real religious principles. Keshi is just putting on a show. But the essence of Braj is Krishna. Krishna is the life of Vrindavan. And so Keshi came running, Piban idabhyadavad, as if he was drinking up the sky. In other words, with his mouth, he's going to drink up everything, and I'm going to become this. I'm going to become everything. And Krishna then was standing before him, and Keshi came running up and tried to strike Krishna with his hooves. But Krishna, he moved out of the way, and Keshi then Krishna grabbed Keshi by the tail and whirled him around and threw him. Just like Garuda might throw a snake. And Krishna just stood there. And Keshi, when he regained consciousness again, he fell unconscious after falling down. Then what did he do? He came running again at Krishna, and it's described Vyadaya. Again, Vyadaya Keshi. Vyadaya means with a big open mouth. This is Keshi's strength. He's got a big mouth. He goes running at Krishna. And what did Krishna do in response? Bhujam Uttaram. Smayam. Krishna Smayam. He smiled. And he took his left arm and he stuck it in the mouth of Keshi. Now what's he telling Keshi in effect? Would you shut up? And what does he do? How does he tell him to shut up? He doesn't like say, excuse me, sir, please, would you just be nice? And he takes his hand and sticks it in Keshi's mouth. And which hand? His left hand. Now what is your left hand? Your left hand is the hand you use to clean yourself in the bathroom. It indicates neglect. Like, I don't really care about you, Keshi. This is how much I value your Bhagavatam class, Keshi. Let me just stick my hand in your mouth. You're making this big, big noise, advertising yourself as a great personality. And Krishna stuck his mouth in Krishna stuck his fist in Keshi's mouth. Jiva Goswami says Keshi's mouth represented his life air, because that's his life, right? That's all he's got going for him, is having a big mouth. And Krishna just laughed at that time. Keshi opened his mouth real big, and that's when Krishna stuck his fist inside. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sarita Darshani says that Krishna laughed and he showed his left hand and he said, Keshi, you're opening your mouth. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something? And Krishna said, here, eat this. And Krishna stuck his fist in Keshi's mouth. This is Vyadaya Keshi. Vyadaya Keshi means that horse, that Keshi, who has a big mouth. And Krishna sticking his fist in Keshi's mouth indicate, would you just shut up with your pride and your debate and your desire for posturing, for position and things? The 6th verse of this chapter is only a few verses describing this pastime. It's a short pastime. But it describes it, Danta Nipetu. Danta means teeth. Nipetu. When Krishna stuck his fist in Keshi's mouth, the teeth of Keshi fell out. And it's described there that Tapta Maya Spisho Yetta, that Keshi felt like Krishna's fist was as hot as a red-hot iron. And then Krishna's fist began to expand, and Keshi's teeth fell out. The Harivamsa Purana says, Dasanaya Mula Nirmuktai, that his teeth came out by the roots. Mula means by the root. In other words, whatever Keshi has to say, Krishna completely shut him up by the roots. The Vishnu Purana says that Sita Bravavya Eva. Eva means just like. That Keshi's teeth were just like thunderbolts. This is how Keshi presented himself as a big devotee. And this is the nature of devotees in the mode of passion. They want this yasa, they want this fame, they want this sense gratification. And they advertise themselves. Ami Bodho Bhakta Ocharja Eabhiman. They have this particular attitude. So then, it becomes a little more colorful in the Bhagavatam. It says, Landam Vishrajan. Vishrajan means to pass. Landam means stool. At that time, the real stuff of Keshi, his real substance came out, which was just stool. That's all that it really was. It wasn't anything substantial or anything nice. So then Krishna removed his hand from Keshi's mouth, and the Vishnu Purana describes Dvipade Spristapucharda Shavan Aikakshi Naisike Keshinaste Dvida Bhute Sakale Dve Vire Jatu. That Keshi's body was split into 2 parts. There was it was half a tail, 1 ear, 1 eye, 1 nostril. And Jiva Goswami, in his Kama Sandarbha commentary in the Bhagavatam, says that when Krishna stuck his hand into Keshi's mouth, it was like untreated indigestion. In other words, although Keshi was running into Vrindavan as fast as the wind, here I am, it's me, Ami Bodho Bhakta, I'm such an important person. He's just disturbing everyone, and everyone becomes afraid. And Krishna challenges him. Krishna sticks his fist, his left hand, in Keshi's mouth. And Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnav Toshani says that Keshi couldn't digest that. Just like a devotee sometimes is trying to present himself as a big person, but then Sadhu Guru comes and chastises him, and he can't tolerate it. And sometimes they go away. They die. Just as Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his explanation, his verse says that when someone gets this disease, then it's necessary, it has to be killed. And the sadhu does that with harsh words. So Keshi couldn't actually digest Krishna. Now, who was Keshi? We know from the Bhagavatam that Keshi then, his soul entered into the body of Krishna. He got Sayuja Mukti, impersonal liberation. In the Garga Samhita, it's described that Keshi, in his previous birth, was named Kumuda, and he was the servant of Indra, and he had a particular service, interesting service. Kumuda would carry the parasol, or the umbrella of Indra. Now, for those of us from the West, an umbrella is just something you use in the rain or maybe in the hot sun. But in Vedic culture, like Indra's position, the umbrella has some significance. That's the one of the symbols of a king. And so Kumuda, that's his job. He's right up there next to Indra with the umbrella, with the symbol of the king. But he's a devotee, Kumuda. He's a mixed devotee, like Indra. Don't think that Indra is a bad devotee. The Bhagavatam says, Eti chamsakala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Jiva Goswami says this verse is a charama shloka, most important verse of the Bhagavatam. What is it? It describes how Krishna is the source of all incarnations. But the second part of the verse, many devotees don't quote. Indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. Krishna supports organized religion. He supports the temple president and the GBC, even if you don't always agree with them. And the sadhus and saints don't always agree with Indra. But Krishna supports him because organized religion has to go on. So that's Indra's position. But Indra is a Sakama Bhakta. He has material desires. In particular, he's a Rajarsik Bhakta. He wants some of this yasa, some of this fame. He wants some of this aishvarya or opulence. And without that, he doesn't want to serve the Lord. Therefore, he's pritak bhava. He's a devotee in the mode of passion. So Kumuda, he described that when Indra was killed, when Indra killed Vitrasura, he performed some Ashwamedha yajna to purify himself. And at that time, he put me in charge of the horse. And I decided, it's a nice horse. I think I'm going to ride this myself because I'm such an important person. Kumuda decided like that. And he started running around on that horse. And the Maruts became furious with me. And they tied me up with ropes. And then Indra cursed me and said, you nonsense rascal. You're acting like a demon? Now you'll become a demon. For 2 manvantaras, you're going to have the form of a horse. And then Keshi told Krishna, today your touch has freed me from that curse. And then Kumuda, whose original form was now manifest before Krishna, he prayed to Krishna, Kinkaram kurumam deva Tvad angro lagnamanasam namastubhyam bhagavate sarvalokaika sakshine. My dear Lord, kinkaram kurumam deva. My dear Lord, please make me your servant. That's my desire. So although Kumuda was a devotee in the mode of passion, and although he made some big mistake, and he ended up being like a demon, and although he's a servant of Indra, he's working with the authorities. Indra's in charge of all the sacrifice. He's a very, very important devotee. He's kind of like the GBC of the universe, or the temple president of the universe. And Kumuda was his right-hand man, so to speak. But Kumuda, he had this Pritag, this separatist desire. He wasn't even serving Indra properly. He wanted to have some position himself, so he rode that horse, and he was cursed. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that this Pritag Bhava, this is something we have to avoid, and we should understand it. I'd like to read to you a few words from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. See, because Keshi represents the attitude of a person, Ami Bodho Bhakta, O Acharya, E Abhiman. He has this Abhiman, that I'm a great devotee. Not only am I a great devotee, but I'm the Guru. I'm the Acharya. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote a letter to a disciple on the 4th of December, 1931. He said a very interesting thing. He said, I received your letter. He said, the Bhagavatam has instructed us not to praise or criticize others' nature or activities. It's also said in Caitanya-Bhagavat that one goes to hell by criticizing others. My instruction to you is not to criticize others, but to correct and purify yourself. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, listen, very nice thing. He says, I'm forced to criticize my own disciples and those who come to me for instruction. I don't understand why you want to go out of your way to try to perform such a difficult task. It's an unpleasant thing. As Hari Sari Prabhu was saying last week, it really struck me, his comment. The Srila Prabhupada once told the devotee, there was some conflict, and devotees were arguing who's going to be temple president, as I recall your comment. And Prabhupada then very simply said, why do they want this? He said, I was never a temple president. I never wanted to be a temple president. Why do people want that kind of thing? So what does it mean to be guru? We may say, I don't want to be guru. I'm not guru. But what is the function of guru? The function of guru is to chastise others, to find fault with others. Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport in Madhya Lila, he says it's a qualification of a Vaishnava that he's adosha darshi. He doesn't see fault. What to speak of speaking the fault, what to speak of chastising people for it, he doesn't even see it. That's the qualification of a Vaishnava. But some people say, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he chastised, he's a court judge. Arjuna, he killed so many people on the battlefield. Srila Prabhupada chastised so many people. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta chastised. But here's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta saying, why do you want to do that? That's a thankless task. And what is the qualification of that guru? In the ninth offense of the holy name is described in the Pabba Purana. Ashradadani vimuke pashinbati yaschopadesha sivanama paradha. You shouldn't speak to someone. It's an offense to speak to someone who has these three disqualifications. The first is ashradadana. They don't have faith in you. And I'm Hari Sari Prabhu can please correct me, but I've heard, I think even sometimes some of Srila Prabhupada's own disciples didn't fully have faith in Srila Prabhupada. Not all of them, but some of them. And Prabhupada wouldn't always disturb them either, because he saw they don't have faith in me. So what can I say to them? I can't give them a proper instruction. Sadhu has two things. Kripa and Vanchana. Kripa means mercy. Vanchana means cheating. And Prabhupada says in the purport in the first canto of Bhagavatam that sometimes great persons cheat persons for a great cause. And Srila Prabhupada, I think in Kolkata, there was a conversation, you can correct me maybe, that some of the Western devotees came to Prabhupada. They were really a little, as we would say in America, fried with India. It's easy to get fried living in India. Believe me, I've been here for over 25 years, I know. Say?
It's called Sahib's disease.
Sahib's disease, the disease of the Sahib. And they came and they said, Prabhupada, everybody here wants to cheat us. It's supposed to be a 10 rupee rickshaw ride. They want to charge me 100 rupees and this and that. And all these Indian people, they're very bad. And Prabhupada said, yes, I'm also Indian. And I also cheated you. But sometimes a sadhu cheats for a good purpose. But that cheating is also mercy. Someone says, oh, I really want to be in charge. Really, you want to be in charge? Yes, and I'll be so happy. Okay, great, you can be in charge. And you get to be in charge. And you discover it's not really quite what you thought it would be. Not everybody's really respectful to you. And there's a lot of headaches and a lot of problems. And actually nobody has any respect for you at all. It's just a very, very big headache. And then in this way we get purified. That's also mercy when we get some position like that. Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter in 1971. I won't read the name of the person he wrote it to. He said, I've noted your several complaints against the devotees, but it would be better to set the example rather than to criticize the defects of the devotees. We should always remember that we recruit members from people in general. It's not expected that every one of our members should be immediately to the standard qualification. The best thing for you is to set the example by your personal behavior and try to reform others, not by criticizing, but by friendly behavior. If sometimes there's any disagreements, we should try to forget such incidents and always be in friendship with each other. I do research. We make some publications. We make magazines called Caitanya-charitamrita. I'm sorry, I'm not doing an advertisement, but that's my service. For that service, I've gone all over India doing research and looking up rare old books, translating things, getting it translated. And we speak also to different sadhus. And we spoke to many different godbrothers of Srila Prabhupada years ago. I think they're pretty much all gone now. And one thing that I marked when we go places, first of all, when I go places, I don't go like a lost orphan who's looking for shelter, but I go there as a servant of Srila Prabhupada. And I have a mission. I'm here to do some service. And I find that people treat you with respect when you go in that mood. And another thing that I found that I really touched my heart was that many devotees greatly appreciate ISKCON. Although sometimes there's some politics and we hear different things. But many of these sadhus, if they're a genuine sadhu, in my humble opinion, they'll appreciate ISKCON. And one comment I've heard over and over again, appreciation of ISKCON is, you people have Guru Bhakti. You people appreciate Srila Prabhupada. This is something that they say. So, to appreciate Srila Prabhupada means, as Prabhupada told my Guru Maharaj in Bhubaneswar in 1977, just a little before he left, Prabhupada told him, he said, you tolerate, cooperate. And that's what it means to be able to work in this mission. Doesn't mean you have to live with everybody else, all these crazy people, and there are some crazies. There are some keshis, but it means that for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, we tolerate, we forgive, and we push on, and we teach by our example. And if we have some position, then we have an obligation. If you're a high court judge like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if you're a powerful warrior like Arjun, and you receive an instruction to kill the enemy, then that's your job. And you must do it. And it's a very glorious thing. But if you don't have that instruction, then why try to take on this very, very difficult thing for yourself? I just wanted to read one last thing from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. It's from a lecture that he gave. He was asked a question, do we have to make disciples? Because Keshi represents the attitude of being guru, the false guru. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's reply was, we don't have to make disciples, we have to become disciples. That's what's important. And then things will work themselves out automatically. We don't have to worry about reforming everyone else and changing the world. We have to first reform ourselves. And if we want to reform everybody else except for myself, that's keishi. And that's a kind of cheating. First, let me reform myself. And if I don't reform myself, how can I reform anyone else? But I can set an example. This is Srila Prabhupada's instruction to the devotees. These are some instructions, some thoughts that we have about this pritak bhava, about the separatist mentality of bhakti in the mode of passion, and some reflections on the pastime of Keshi Dhamma and Leela. So I want to stop there. And by my clock, we have 8 minutes if we don't go overtime. I don't know if that's allowed or not. But I'd like to ask if the devotees have any reflections. Vaisheshika Prabhu always does this to my great happiness. It's very powerful. Devotees can share if there was something in the talk that inspired you, or maybe reminded you of something else. That's parasparanu katanam. That's how we make a sangha. So, Hari Sai Prabhu, would you like to add anything in this? I'm sure you have many, many thoughts.
Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna. I just want to smile of 19th. And how big ISKCON was growing. Of course, at that time the Jewel Beach Temple was just coming up, and it was an amazing edifice. I mean, opulent. And Prabhupada, he told me, he said, I never went to the West to become successful. And he said, I went because of this utsahan, because I had some enthusiasm for the instructions of my spiritual master. So he said, I never went there to be successful. That's always stuck with me, that was Prabhupada's mood. Many times he would say. So people would come naturally and praise him and thank him for what he's doing. And he would always say, this is simply my Guru Maharaj. He's acting through me, that's all. There's a purport actually in the Bhagavatam where Prabhupada says that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is now preaching all over the world due to the cooperation of his disciples. So Prabhupada had that humility. When you came in front of him or you talked with him, it didn't matter who he dealt with. He was so polite, he was so, wonderful. People that might have had a bad impression or, a bad understanding, once they met with Srila Prabhupada, that softened their hearts. You couldn't help but melt.
Thank you, I've got this thing here. So just a little reflection also. My Guru Maharaj used to say that you should look out for the backbenchers. The people, like so many Matajis in our society, who never had an opportunity to become famous or big devotees, but they're just there for Srila Prabhupada. And so many other small devotees. And that's a very, very special thing. We want to try to associate with devotees like that. Thank you, Hari Sari Prabhu. Prabhuji, you had something? Okay, I just turned it off. Just push it up to turn it on.
Yeah, hooray for the backbenchers. Just either of you, or there's 3 or 4 of you, Prabhupada acting in the mode of passion, bhakti passion. Can you give at least perhaps one each example of Prabhupada acting in the mode of passion? And I'm sure it's more like prema passion. Can you bring forth from your memory something?
I could comment something on that. The word passion sounds harsh to us, and we don't like to think of Prabhupada in the mode of passion. But the same phrase is used by Madhvacharya to speak about, he says there's three types of discussions, Vada, Jalpa, and Vitanda. And Jalpa means passionate. And his definition of Jalpa discussion is very interesting. He says it means when you argue with someone and defeat them. And Srila Prabhupada did that many times, and he said the devotees sometimes do that. It reminds me, though, your comment, a story that I heard recently from a devotee, a Prabhupada disciple. The devotees here can correct me if you know more details. That I think it was in Juhu, or in Hare Krishna land when they had the Pandal program. Some man came and started challenging Srila Prabhupada and saying, who are these Westerners and they're not following properly and this, and really criticizing Srila Prabhupada. And the devotees were all quiet and disturbed. And they wanted to chastise, but everybody was quiet because let Prabhupada, now that Prabhupada's going to smash this person. And they were very surprised, and Prabhupada's response was very humble. And Prabhupada said, just please forgive me, like this. And later, the devotees said that Prabhupada told them, perhaps I offended him in a previous life. So, although sometimes devotees, they like to advertise smashing the rascals and things, Prabhupada is also very, very gentle and very, very humble. And I think my humble opinion is that we may not, our perspective and understanding Prabhupada smashing the demons, his smashing is not the same kind of thing that I'm going to try to do to imitate. Do you have some comment on that?
I wasn't directly involved in that, but I heard that fellow that was criticizing Prabhupada, he was an Indian man in London. And he was coming and helping the devotees with so many different things. He was very helpful. He was very happy that they were becoming members of his religion, Hindus. And when Prabhupada came, they hired a place called Conway Hall, I think it was. And this man came. Then Prabhupada spoke. And the more that Prabhupada spoke, the more this man became agitated and disturbed. So initially it looked like he was a real friend and a supporter. But when he met Prabhupada personally and heard what he had to say, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, this man was a Mayavadi. So he couldn't deal with Prabhupada praising Krishna as the Supreme Lord, and he started accusing Prabhupada of so many things, and you don't understand philosophy, and really chastising in the middle of the hall. And everybody's looking around, you know, who is this guy?
It's confirmed.
And Prabhupada didn't reply, and the man left before the end of the program. Then afterwards, the devotees, you know, they were puzzled. And Prabhupada's response was what you said, that he said that maybe in my last lifetime I must have, you know, criticized him. So now he's doing. So let him, don't say anything.
Okay. Agnideva? Okay. Anybody else have any reflections or something? Mataji, Subhangi, you want to share something? You have to speak really, you have to yell practically. I'm sorry, I know you're not a yeller, Subhangi. Please, best you can.
When I was in Delhi, I had a half an hour time with my husband to have darshan of Srila Prabhupada and to put questions. And I asked him about the nature of fight. Why we have at ISKCON so much fight going on. He said, first of all, he said, we are conditioned souls. We are all conditioned souls. And the second answer, he said, when somebody is hitting you or insulting you, then just be humble. Never hit back, never shout back, never shout back, because this purification is going on in your heart. From many past lives, you have done so many atrocious activities, and Now you can get purified, be humble. Never shout back, never insult back, never. So that is maybe in the same line as you just give the example. That we should not retaliate. We should not retaliate.
Can I just ask you, can you give the mic to Mataji? Could you repeat what she just said in your own words? Loudly, really loud.
One time in Delhi, I was with Srila Prabhupada for half an hour with my husband, and so Mataji asked something about so much pride going on in it. Fighting going on in ISKCON amongst the devotees, yeah. And just correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. And Srila Prabhupada said, so you shouldn't retaliate. Just we've all come in very conditioned state, and we should just be humble and tolerate and take this, as purification, yeah. Yeah. Anything else you want me to say? It's okay?
It reminds me of a talk I heard once from Niranjan Maharaj in, where was that? In Kazakhstan. And he was speaking to all the leaders of the yatra. And there was some quarrels and disagreements going on. And Niranjan Maharaj studies says, you don't know all the bad things that have been done to me in ISKCON. He said, I have so many reasons to leave ISKCON. But I stay because I want to serve Srila Prabhupada. I want to please Srila Prabhupada. And I think pretty much anybody who's been here more than 2 years is like that. Mataji, you had something?
Yes. So my question is just that, like you said that when you were doing research around India, that then you met different sadhus, so on in your research, and you noticed that they said that we have sadhunista in ISKCON. Gurunista in ISKCON. So my question is that during the first years we saw that there was not so many books that the devotees didn't read. So many literatures like Bhagavatam, they were not printed yet, but they had unflinching faith in Srila Prabhupada's, even a letter or just follow simple instructions. It seems to me like when I read devotional activities performed by Prabhupada's in the beginning, that it seemed like they didn't read so much. So now when we don't have Prabhupada's physical presence, then I read that many have said that Prabhupada is especially present in his books, and so that you can develop this relationship with Prabhupada through his books. And personally, I feel very connected with Prabhupada when I sit down for a couple of hours and just read his books, but also, of course, here in this assembly and through the Guru and the other devotees. But if you could kindly elaborate the difference and
maybe I ask some of the senior, maybe Sahadev Prabhu, you haven't said anything, or Sarvabhauma. You must have some deep realizations about this. Would you like to comment on this? She's saying that I commented how many people appreciate how in ISKCON devotees have Guru Nishtha, they have faith in Prabhupada. And she's saying how that Nishtha comes from reading Prabhupada's books. But in the early days, many devotees weren't reading the books, and they didn't understand the books, but still they had love for Prabhupada. And what can we do now to keep that Guru Nishtha? So anybody wants to... Please, Prabhuji.
Yeah, once Prabhupada said that many devotees had come on the earth planet, and that he was throwing a net out to catch all those devotees. So that's why not everyone joined, not everyone followed Prabhupada, but his disciples, he said that they had been placed there to help him in his mission. And in Jayabadama, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jayabadama, he explains that, and also what's his name? Madhura Kandambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti's Madhura Kandambini. He explains, he's talking about faith. Because you were asking the question, we all had so much faith in Prabhupada. So he explains, in the beginning is Agyata Sakriti, is Sakriti that you develop, you don't even know that you develop. If someone hears the kirtan in a city, and he goes, maybe even joking, Hare Krishna, he's getting Sakriti. If a bird drinks the water from the sadhu's imprint, that bird is getting Sakriti. So after Agyata Sakriti, one comes to the level of Sakriti, and so on the level of Sakriti, one understands Krishna is God. And then one will purposely serve. Usually it's the deity in the temple, the Kanishta Adhikari level. And then as the devotee is serving, his Sakriti gets further, and then he becomes eligible for Sadhu Sangha. So when one gets Sadhu Sangha, then the Sakriti develops very quickly, because after Sadhu Sangha is Bhajana Kriya. One is doing sadhana, and so the Sakriti develops very quickly. So whoever has a bona fide spiritual master, it's because of Sakriti that has been developed. But sometimes it's just pure mercy. Sometimes that can happen. But generally that's the way it goes. And Prabhupada was very, very merciful to us. All pure Vaishnavas are merciful. So I guess Prabhupada disciples think that Prabhupada is the most merciful. And for us, he was. Is that okay?
Do you want to add anything, Agnideva Prabhu or Hari Sai Prabhu?
I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else? Any final comment? Maybe Mataji? A reflection or something?
Thank you. It was a really nectarian class. Thank you very much. I don't know if this could be considered related or not, but it came to my mind about adhikar. In the early days, there were some proper disciples. They would give class and talk to the Indians, looking down on them, saying that they're like horses, camels, asses, like that, because they're working really hard, and they were so, obviously, all these are congregation members he was talking about, and they give so much donation, they support the temples, and he would talk like that. And then, after 86, all these things, the temples become empty, and most grahastha had to go out and work. And the same person ended up working in a cement factory, even worse than what he was criticizing about, even worse, where he became a really heavy laborer, So I'm just saying that it just reminds me about another point regarding, it's the same point of when we criticize even the Mayavadis. Prabhupada could speak like that, looking heavy, chastise them. But for us, or other people who speak heavily, they have to know their adhikar first. That's my point. My point is to realize our adhikar, like a senior devotee, like many times Srila Prabhupada would say, I can say that, but you can't say it, right? So the point is a question of adhikar, of where we are at, and obviously humility wins the heart anyway. Even though we know the answers, we know the philosophy. So anyway, so that's my point. Thank you very much.
It reminds me of there's a story I can tell you. Jagannath Sutta Prabhu knows this person, my god brother. There was one new bhakta in an ISKCON project, and some very big government leader came to that ISKCON temple. And it happened to be a lady. And the devotees were taking her around and showing her everything. And this devotee decided, this new bhakta, decided he would preach to her. And he memorized a verse. And he said, oh, you're a politician and you're a lady. You know what Chanakya Pandit says? That you should never trust a woman or a politician. He quoted this verse to her. And for some reason, I don't know if it was connected with that, but that was the last time she came to the ISKCON temple after that. But you can say what he was saying was true. Prabhupada quoted that verse many times. Chanakya Pandit says that. It's said in Shastra. But coming from his lips, it wasn't appropriate. Do you want to add anything else? Sorry, Prabhu, or anyone? Okay. Okay, so we can go ahead and stop. Do we have some more kirtan now? I think? Okay. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki, Gaur Premanandi, Vanchakalpatarubhischa, Kripa Sindhu Bevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo.
Unless a person is very advanced, unless a person is very advanced, you cannot chastise them.
Yeah. I don't see, is Nitai around? Have you seen him? No? Nitai. Yeah. He didn't come. I'll sing. Anyway, go ahead and play.
You're hired on
It's good enough. I'm a good enough kind of guy. I'm not a professional, but I'm good enough. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Ramo, Hare Ramo, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishnu Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotara Sata Sri Shrimad, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanaravinda, Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Nitya Lila Pravishnu Vishnupad Paramhamsa Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur. Prem Se Go Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Sri Radha Krishna Shyamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki. Ganga Devi Jamuna Mai Ki. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki. Naam Sankirtan Ki. Harinam Mahamantra Ki. Brihat Mridanga Seva Ki. Parama Karuna Sri Sri Gaur Nityananda Ki. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. So now the part you all been waiting for. That's prasadam. So I think if we form rows, that's what we did last week, then the serving can begin. I'll sit at the table on a chair. I can get up. I haven't been sitting too long. Oh. So while we get organized for serving, we can say the prasadam prayer. Water? Or is ginger tea? Yes.
Maybe it's not so hot. Should I warm it up?
Yeah, get it hot. Take this. You could put it back in here. Sarira vidya jal Jadendriya tahika Jeev pile Bishaya sagore Thar madhya jivayati Lobhamoy sudurmati Thake jeta Kotina sangsare Krishna borodoyamoy Koribare Jivajoy Saprasad Annadilo Bhai Seyanam Ritapal Radha Krishna Gunaga Premedako Caitanya-charitamrita Bhagavat Prasadam ki Haribo. Then take these. Ah. Give that
Prabhu. Canada. Canada.